I hope everyone is doing well. Today I'll be presenting a rules video on prevention effects and everything related to it. We'll first talk about some basic terminology needed to discuss prevention effects. Then we'll delve into conditions whereby you can use prevention effects, followed by the implications of using prevention effects. We'll then round it off with a quiz. So let's get straight into it. Prevention effects, or rather prevention cards, prevent a certain effect from occurring. So we have a few examples as you can see on the screen. Feedback filter is a prevention card, and it prevents the net damage effect. Similarly, sacrificial construct is a prevention card that prevents program or hardware trashing as an effect. So let's get that established. We also note that the keyword avoid for all purposes in this discussion is exactly the same as the keyword prevent. The only difference is that avoid is only reserved for preventing tags. Every other prevent effect uses the prevent keyword. So with that out of the way, let's see two scenarios wherein prevention cannot be used. The first is when the effect did not occur in the first place. This is pretty obvious. If net damage did not occur, you cannot use feedback filter's ability even if you wanted to. The second scenario is also very obvious. When the cards dishes out an effect that says cannot be prevented, such as stim hacks brain damage cannot be prevented, well, you can't prevent it. Stating the obvious here, but it bears reminding. So let's see the implications of prevention. These are probably the more murky rules that hopefully will clear things up for most of you viewers. There are 4 points here, so let's get straight into each of them. The first one is that when you prevent a cause, their corresponding rewards do not resolve. So what is a cause? Typically when you see statements in the format cost:reward, as shown here, this basically is an indication that the bolded half, the front half, is the cost. If you prevent the payment of a cost, the reward will not resolve. An example of this is the interaction with sacrificial construct and shift. Shift requires you to trash the shift as a cost. However, if you prevent this cost by using sacrificial construct to save the shift from being trashed, you can do that. It is allowed in the game. However, if you do so, the effect, or rather the reward, which is breaking up to 3 sentry subroutines, will not resolve. So there is basically no benefit to you using sacrificial construct on a shift unless you want to trigger this trash can ability for guys or tech trader or whatever. Contrast this with another sentry breaker, which is fairy. Fairy does not have a similar wording. Fairy says when you encounter a piece of ice in which you use fairy to break a subroutine ends, trash fairy. This is just a side effect of using fairy. This is not a cost. This is a cost. This is a cost, this is not a cost. Therefore, you can use sacrificial construct to trash fairy and it will still stay on the table even after you use it to break a sentry. So that's a little nuance there. Also note that there's another alternative format to this cost reward thing. This statement here, do cost to reward. This is seen on a couple of cards, most notably snatch and grab. The cost is take one. The cost is take one tag, and the reward is trash one connection. This is not exactly do something to something, but there's the two word here. The two keyword is what indicates cost. This is very, very murky indeed, and you probably want to consult the FAQ or the UFAQ on a case-by-case basis. But in this case, I can tell you that taking one tag is indeed a cost, and if it is prevented or avoided in some way, shape or form, the reward, which is the trash one connection, will not be prevented, because taking one tag is a cost to prevent to get the reward, which is preventing the trashing of one connection. I'm sorry, this should be together. So this entire thing is the reward, which is to prevent the trashing of one connection. So if you prevent the cost of taking a tag, you cannot. The prevention of trashing the connection does not resolve. Very complicated. I'm sorry if I confuse you there. Let me know in the comments if you need more clarification. But for now, we'll move on to the second point. Ordinal events. This one's quite interesting. So there are ordinal events in the game that are marked by clauses such as the first time, the second time, first, second, third, whatever. The official FAQ states that if a prevent ability happens, the game still counts the prevented effect towards the number of times it has occurred. So to give you a concrete example, we have an Aiki that the runner is encountering, and the runner has a net shield. There is a Tori Hanzo on the server. So on the first instance of net damage, net shield prevents the first net damage. Even though the net damage is prevented, and even though the runner technically did not suffer the net damage because it was prevented, it still triggers this, the first time you would do net damage. So Tori Hanzo still triggers here, but because of ability fizzling rules, this doesn't occur because there's no more, the net damage has been prevented. You cannot trigger it to convert it to brain damage instead. This is a separate topic altogether, but this is something worth noting because when you go on to deal the second net damage of Aiki, the second net damage is considered the second instance. It's no longer the first time, therefore this second net damage cannot be converted with Tori Hanzo. So this is an important interaction to note in ordinal events. The third interesting implication is that mandatory prevention cards cannot be suppressed. This is again best illustrated with an example. Jasminder is an example of a mandatory prevention card. The wording says avoid, you can think of this as prevent, the first tag during each run. This does not say you may, so therefore it is mandatory. Whether the runner likes it or not, the first tag they would take during each run would be prevented no matter what. Mandatory preventions cannot be suppressed unless, obviously, if it says cannot be avoided or cannot be prevented. That the cannot overrides can. But anyway, back to this. So this means that even if you end up avoiding a tag that is part of a cost, such as that on Authenticator. We see Authenticator here says you may take a tag, this is the cost, to bypass something. This is the reward. Even if you really want the reward of bypassing Authenticator, you cannot choose to take the tag if it is the first tag you would avoid during the run. You are forced to avoid the tag and therefore you cannot bypass it. So this is a counterintuitive interaction, but it actually checks out because Jasminder is not volitional. It is completely mandatory. Alright, so finally we'll look at the last implication, which is that prevention effects outspeed the effect. Prevention cards outspeed the effects that they are preventing. An example of this is with All Seeing Eye versus a bunch of resources. All Seeing Eye states that you can trash all resources, and this happens simultaneously. Every single resource is going to be trash. But before they're trash, they are first targeted. Each one of them is marked with a target for simplicity's sake. And before these targets get to resolve, before we trash all these targets, we have to resolve prevention effects first because they do outspeed outspeed the act of resolving the trashes. So how can we prevent the resource trashing? We can use Fall Guy. So this runner happens to have 2 Fall Guys installed. We can use 1 Fall Guy to prevent one of the resource trashes. In this case, we choose to protect DLR, thereby removing the target from it. Similarly, we use second Fall Guy to protect Wireless Net Pavilion. We remove the crosshair from it as well. Then, once we are done with resolving prevention effects, we'll resolve the effect of trashing all resources itself. So this is where the crosshairs come in. For every resource that still has a crosshair on it, it is going to be trashed. If the resource is no longer there because it was used, like the Fall Guys, well then they fizzle. So this happens, and the runner is still left with their data link and Wireless Net Pavilion because Fall Guys protected them. This is possible even though the All Seeing Eye was supposed to trash the Fall Guy. Because the Fall Guy outspeeds the All Seeing Eye, you can use prevention effects to save your other resources before the Fall Guys go down anyway. So yeah, this is a little nuance of prevention effects in that they outspeed the effect that they're trying to prevent. So that's about it for the 4 implications of prevention. To recap, if costs are prevented, the rewards don't resolve. That's the first thing. Secondly, prevented effects still count towards ordinals, the first time, the second time, etc. Thirdly, mandatory prevention effects such as Jasminder cannot be suppressed. You have to do preventions if they are not May abilities. And finally, prevention effects resolve before any remaining unprevented effects. They outspeed the effect that they're trying to prevent. Alright, so let's finish this off with a quiz. So question 1. If you avoid the tag on encountering a data raven, are you forced to end the run? Pause the video if you need to think about it. Otherwise, we'll move on. Question 2. The runner has a Guru Davinta installed and they access an Obokata protocol. Can they steal this Obokata protocol? And finally, we move on to question 3. The runner encounters a Colossus that is triple advanced, therefore the souped up subroutine fires, which is trash 1 program and 1 resource. The runner happens to have a sacrificial construct and a clot installed, and the corp wishes to get rid of both of them, using Colossus to target the both of them. Can the runner keep the clot in play by using sacrificial construct on the clot? Alright, when you're ready, you can unpause the video, because now we'll move on to the answers. Starting from the beginning, question 1, the answer is no, because taking a tag is not a cost. You can choose the first option, which is to take the tag. This means that you don't have to resolve the second option. If you choose the first option, you take the tag, and you can choose to avoid it as per normal, because this is not the cost of encountering the ice. This is simply an effect that happens as a result of the on-encounter effect. So yes, you can still continue with the Data Raven run, even if you use something like New Angela City Hall to avoid the 1 tag. Alright, question 2. Can you steal Obokata? You cannot, because this is not a May. This is not, yes, this is completely mandatory. So, to steal the Obokata protocol, you must suffer the 4 net damage, and this suffer more 4 net damage is something that you can prevent with Guru Davinder. So whether you like it or not, Guru Davinder will activate, and because of its activation, you will not suffer the net damage, and you cannot steal the Obokata even if you wanted to. Final question. Yes, the runner can preserve the clot by using Sacrificial Construct to remove the crosshair that's on the clot. This works exactly in the same way as All-Seeing Eye on Fall Guys. Because Trash 1 program and 1 resource was stated in the same sentence, this means that they are simultaneous effects. Therefore, before both effects resolve at the same time, but the prevention effect outspeeds, and therefore Sacrificial Construct gets to fire first before Colossus gets trashed the clot. So yes, it can be protected. Alright, so that's all for this presentation on rules related to prevention effects. I now have a little something, a little request for all of you. If you wish to support me, I would really appreciate it if you help me fill up the survey that I'm going to talk about right now. So this survey is actually Netrunner related and is regarding FFG's rather recent decision to incorporate cache refresh as part of what is called limited kit regionals. So certain regionals around the world have been extended from the usual 1 day to 2 days, and with that there's this thing called cache refresh, which is a side event that's being held on the 2nd day, so that even if you're knocked out of the cut, you will still have something to do on the 2nd day. Now, this survey that I want to do is to gauge the general public opinion on on cache refresh as a format, as well as the extension of regionals from 1 day to 2 days. So some of you might have already taken part in the cache refresh event yourself. Some of you might even have taken part in a regionals involving cache refresh as well. Regardless of whether you have taken part or not, I would love to hear from you and your opinion on these 2 issues. So here's the survey. I will post the link to it in the video description. But for now, I will walk you through the questions that are in the survey. So The first question is, if there were a 2-day regional announced that is nearby in your vicinity, would you attend it? And if not, why? So some of you might attend it regardless of duration. Some of you will not attend it because you're not the kind that does regionals. Some of you might not attend it if it's 2 days because a full weekend is too much commitment. If you would attend a 1-day regional but would squirm at the thought of a 2-day regionals, this is the option for you. And finally, if you normally wouldn't attend a 2-day regionals, but with cash refresh, that changes your mind and you say, hey, I'm going to attend it because there's cash refresh, this is the option for you. The second question is similar, but instead of asking you the difference between a 2-day regional and a 1-day regional, now I'm asking you the difference between a far away regional and a regional close to home. Some of you would attend far away regionals regardless, some of you would not attend regardless, some would have time issues because traveling takes up time, and having to stay overnight also takes up time, and some people don't have the time commitment for that. And some people have money issues now because being far away from home, you would probably need to book overnight accommodation, you might need to pay more for transport, and some people cannot afford that. And finally, some people might not attend regionals that are far away, but if there's the opportunity to carry on into cash refresh in the second day, that might incentivize people to attend, this is the option for them. Alright, so the third question is assuming that one does not make the cut at a 2-day regionals. Would cash refresh being on the second day enhance your 2-day regionals experience? So it's a simple yes or no question. Some of you might not enjoy the format, and some of you might decide that you wouldn't attend day 2 regardless of whether you made the cut or not because of other commitments or issues. And finally, the last question is, do you like the cash refresh format? After answering this question, I'll ask you why, and that will be the end of the survey. So it's a very short survey. You probably have the answers in your mind as well as I went through this survey. Please fill it in, I would really appreciate it, and spread it around to your other net running friends as well. I would actually love to gauge the community and see to what extent cash refresh and this 2-day regional scheme is successful at encouraging players to go out there and play more games. Yep, so that's it from me. Thanks for watching, and go fill out the survey. See you next time.